Welcome to another episode of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Mike Traster is blessing us for another round. I'm Simon Fuller. Glad to have you along with us. And Mike, I wanted to adjust my mic there. I bet that made a heck of a noise on the back end. Before we get rolling, just want to say thank you for jumping back in.
Oh, well, yeah.
Knocking out some more shows.
We're trying to do some good.
We are. And that's what I love, Mike. He's got notebooks upon notebooks. In fact, off the screen he actually combined 4 notebooks, took out the binding, made new binding, made 4 into 1.
Yeah.
You're loaded with ideas, you're loaded with topics, just where life takes you and what you see and what you observe, and you're definitely good at just thinking on that and processing and imagining, okay, what can we do to improve? And that leads us into yet another topic, one of a million we can come up with, but we'll start with one today, Mike, episode 69.
Well, the overarching idea is that we can share things of value with one another that are helpful, that maybe open our heads and our hearts a little bit, give us something to think about.
Yeah.
So we're not reading off ritualized scripts.
Yeah.
And see if maybe we can't increase our horizons. This is completely off topic from today, but there's something I saw on the internet today. I tried to share it on a group, and it was considered irrelevant, so they wouldn't take it. If you have an old fence with a bunch of heavy 4x4s, you can break your back pulling them out.
Sure.
Right? So here's this idea. Guy gets his electric drill, and he gets some long, like 4-inch screws, and he screws a couple of screws into a 2x4 vertical on the post, and then a second one, and underneath it he has a car jack, and he jacks this monster fence post out of the ground. I've never seen it, but if you got a crappy back or shoulders like me,
or just want to work smarter, so you don't get a crappy back end.
Yeah, right, because that could be a project.
Yeah.
And it's like, I watched him do this. It took him 40 seconds to put the screws in and 20 to jack the thing out of the ground.
Right.
And maybe he saved himself an injury.
Yeah.
And if he had 10, wow.
Right.
So, does that have anything to do with this? Not directly, but it's...
But that's the beauty. Therein lies Mike Traster's inspiration. You see something and you say, what can I pass it along to help? And that's most of our topics are, I observe something, I want to pass it along.
Yeah.
Pass it forward. So let's jump in, Mike. That was an off today's topic, but still a fun little nugget. What's today's topic?
Today, the first topic is, how can we talk with an atheist? Now, Simon and I are both Christian.
Right.
We have a very different approach to how we see our faith. Right. I'm not antisocial, but I'm not a social Christian.
Okay.
I'm not a social Christian because of all the gameplay, all the posturing. That's my reserved seat, so get the hell out of it.
Right.
All that garbage and the beauty contest in the front lobby and what I call showtime.
Sure.
And what that does is old members and new members of all ages who don't make the cut, so to speak, right, get their hearts broken in church, right? There's a lot of people out there who are, their faith is not only unseen by others, but it's anonymous to themselves because they've had their heart broken in church or by believers.
Sure.
And believers.
Right.
Because of those behaviors. So I remember in a psych hospital talking to this guy who had obvious, hideous spiritual problems. He was living in the dark zone. And I was talking to him, and we weren't allowed to directly bring up religion, which is absurd because it's a big chunk of what we are.
Right.
It's like not looking at the left rear wheel of a car.
Right.
You know, oh no, it doesn't have a left rear wheel. But, you know, one wheel off the car and the car doesn't go.
Right.
Right? So, at some point I asked him, do you believe in God? No. Angry, very angry. Just got these dark, like raccoon circles around his eyes from God knows what. I said, so you don't believe there's a source of good? No, look at this world, you know, F this and F that. And I said, you know, it's a pretty rough world at times, you know. I mean, not 100%, because we're sitting here not hurting each other, true? Yeah. So there's a little crack in there. And I said, so let me ask you a question. Do you believe that there is an actual personal source of evil? And the guy sits straight up like an irate drunk in a bar, like this. Absolutely. So would you call that the devil or Satan? Absolutely. I said, so you believe in the devil because he's promoting evil and suffering. So obviously you believe in good, which has its own source. Are you aware of the fact that you've always believed in God, but that maybe the form with which it's presented offends you? He was astonished. I mean, it kind of softened him up, you know. And you could see a little bit of blood come back into his face, like not rage red, but, you know, almost like somebody's embarrassed in a good way.
Yeah.
A hope. And so a little tiny one watt light went on in his darkness. I don't know what he did with it, you know. So the one thing, to start with this thing of, somebody says I'm an atheist. I don't know what that means. Does it mean you believe there's no God, or does it mean that you don't have clear evidence that there is God?
Sure.
Because those are two separate things.
Very separate.
Right? There's been a bunch of articles written in recent decades on all these scientists and famous, you know, movers and shakers who were atheists. Turns out it was a lie. Most of them were, if not all of them, were agnostics.
Sure.
But they rebranded them as atheists. They wrote a freaking lie,
Yeah.
you know? And that's part of their narrative, right? Which I find disgusting.
Sure.
That's evil behavior.
Right.
Right? So, one idea, be on equal footing,
Yeah.
right? Just talk, share your own experiences, you know? You think the world sucks? In a lot of ways, so do I.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. I think when you talk about common ground, I believe everybody has some sort of a story of suck in their life.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Big.
If not many stories.
Oh, yeah.
Some more than others, but that is a common ground that we can share. And yeah, and I don't fully understand why. I remember this little kid that drowned in a community I lived in the river fishing with his new fishing pole for Easter weekend. Why, right?
Right.
Why did that happen? Or you know, a child sexually assaulted, how can that happen? Or a school shooting, or a, you know, you name it, how, why? We all struggle with that question. Christians and non-Christians.
I remember when I was involved in some Weichiru karate years ago. I was a very good beginner. My roommate, by the time he was just leaving his white belt status, was obliterating most of the black belts in the school.
Yeah.
And I used to joke and say he was like a Bengal tiger poured into a human form.
Yeah.
He was a big boy, you know, he's like almost the size of George Foreman. And when I used to fight with him, I would get bone bruises on my shins that would last a decade or longer. It was horrible. I did knock him out once, but that was a good start. So be on equal footing. So him and I, we had this conversation once, and he said to me, he goes, you know, I can't do his accent very well. He was from Boston. It's like, you know what happened to me, Michael? I'm like, what? He goes, when I started doing this karate, I realized how much he had already been a boxer and a weightlifter and a football player. He was a strong, tough guy. Because every time I come in a room, I realize I could hurt almost everybody in the room, if not everyone, or worse. And I'm like, he says, I size everybody up, I size the room up, I see all the stuff I could do, and there's a part of me that's like motorized that feels that hunger. And I'm like, well, how many times have you done that? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, well, never. And I said, oh, I feel that too. I've never done it either, and I'm not gonna.
Right.
Right? Here's the star.
We'll let her in here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably in the frame, there's a dog in the background trying to get in and
Beautiful puppy.
take over our show, Mike.
Absolutely.
They don't look at us when the dog.
We should have a dance on the table while we're talking. So, some darkness lives within all of us.
Sure.
But the question is, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm diverting from the absolute core center topic, but it's relevant. So if you feel like you're evil because you have dark thoughts, everybody has dark thoughts. What do you do with them? That defines who you are, right? So, equal footing. So if we have a difference of opinion on, is there a God? Maybe, no, yes. Does it have to be a win-lose contest? Does it have to be the Yankees versus the Giants in the World Series?
No.
Does it have to be a winner
No.
and a loser? No. We can just, it's like, we could look at it almost like walking through a museum. Do you like that piece of art? Maybe. What do you like about it? I like the passion of it, or I like the colors, or I like whatever, the dimensions,
Right.
the accuracy. So you can just kick the can down the road. If you have this rigid goal, you're going to start getting heated up, right? You're going to get frustrated. You're going to feel like you got to carve a notch to win, and then you got to go back and report to your quote-unquote leaders or your group. See what I did? I won. Hey, I won for the team. It's nonsense. You had non-relational, offensive, bullying conversation with somebody.
And ultimately, most likely, deepened their heel digging into their stance.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I'm approached that way, I dig in deeper. I mean, it's just a natural response. And when you think of any of Jesus' teachings on the religious side, it was never a bulldog style.
No.
Never.
No.
Follow me, believe, and watch.
Right.
And like you said, just, do you like this? Yeah. Do you like that? No. Do you like that? Maybe. How about this? Yeah. Let that work. We'll think about this.
Yeah.
Have a conversation.
Imagine going to a car show. Do you like the back line? I was looking at, what was it, a 67 Pontiac Bonneville two-door hardtop. Oh, God, what a beautiful car. Sweet. It looked like a larger GTO, right? And it was, from my eyes, so close to being perfection in terms of its finish. It's like, I want that. Can't have it, but I want it.
But the thing is, Mike, too, for any of us to win, you have to be confident you are absolutely correct in all that you say.
Absolutely. Got to be careful.
Do you
right?
think, because I don't, and I haven't met a Christian yet, even going back to the book of Job, he was more righteous than many, and even he got pulled aside, and there were a couple holes in what he was saying in relation to God and creation. Got to be careful, because none of us have the complete answer.
No, we absolutely don't. Absolutely do not. You're right. So, there was this thing I was talking about with somebody the other day about books and movies, where if it's done right, you enter a state called a suspension of disbelief. Have you heard that term?
I don't know that I have.
Okay. So, when Sonny Corleone pulled up to the toll booth in The Godfather, and the bad guys all blocked him in, and then they shot him and killed him, right? You weren't watching a movie. You were there witnessing his murder. Well, and you could think of that last horrific scene in the movie Carrie, right? Or maybe something in Harry Potter where it just brings you in, and your rational mind of belief and disbelief, you're so perfectly pulled in experientially that you suspend your disbelief. You push it to the side and you are immersed in the story, right?
Sure.
It's like drinking water. It becomes a part of me. So I guess one of the things is you could say, well, like, here's an idea. If for a moment you thought maybe there is a God and I was in some peril, and I said to you, well, in case there's a God, would you say a simple prayer for me? Well, how would you say it? Would you make it complicated or simple, long or short? You know, would you look up? Would you close your eyes? How would you do it? So you're not telling them to believe. You're saying if.
Right.
You know, is there some source, some intelligent, benevolent source that none of us understand,
Right.
right? That you could speak to from your heart, your heart of hearts, and say, please help this person get through this deeply perilous time, right? So it's a great lie that I experience repeatedly. I've been in and out of a number of churches, happily out for several years now. Although I must say, when we have conversations, to me, we're in church.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
to me, this is church.
Right. I would agree.
You know, because what are we doing? We're dividing truth and falsehood, right? Good and bad. So my church isn't like that. Probably it is. You're in your comfort zone in that group. But when that other person comes in that doesn't fit, they're gonna get iced out, you know. So I would say reevaluate that. Shaming destroys the conversation. And what you were saying earlier, it's like maybe that person is 6 months away from saying maybe their head and their heart open up. And now they're 6 years because you beat them up.
Yeah.
Or I did, right? I've seen this several times recently, locally. There's always a bozo that does it. You shame somebody by showing off how many scriptures you've memorized.
Yeah.
In rapid succession. Oh, well, blah, 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 and you're like, you're shrinking. You're going, God, I'm an idiot. I'm a scriptural moron.
Right.
They're a real Christian and I'm nothing, right? And that's intentional. That's just the same as the clown at the front door who's showing off his new $50,000 car, or $100,000, whatever it is now. How you do that instead is you say, there's this one little tiny sentence that I really like, you know, and it's made a difference in my life. And you share whatever that sentence is. I like 1 John. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Boom. You know, that's talking about Jesus, one with God, you know. And I'm like, I told somebody once, I said, that blew me right off my bar stool, which is double funny because I don't drink. But, so, people ask the very, very fair questions. Where is peace? Why do people get sick? Why are there terrible accidents? And where is justice?
Yeah.
Right? Well, the answer is we're fallen. We live in a fallen world. Just because we're Christian doesn't mean we got completely patched up. It means we have a lifeline.
Right.
Not that I'm completely shined up. We still get bad habits.
Right.
You know, we still have to wrestle with our own inner garbage, right? But now we have a relationship with God, with Christ. But that question, I think when somebody says to me, or any of us, well, what about this peace, absence of justice, violence, terrorism, hatred, injustice, real injustice, not narrative injustice.
Right.
You know what you say to that person? It's a very good question. This is not a pure world,
Right.
right? We come from a pure God, but we were created with free will.
Right.
And
justice is promised in Scripture, but that doesn't mean we get to always understand that piece.
No.
You know, I've struggled like most people, Christians or non, with those same questions, Mike, and it's not like this is an overly complicated or wow statement, but for whatever reason, it stayed with me. And they said, Simon, do you believe your God, the creator of all this,
right.
could be understood by one of us? Do you want a God that you can understand? Does that seem like a true God that can do all this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I said, yeah, I mean, if I could understand him, it probably wouldn't be much of a God, right?
No.
If I could see it all. And that was even going back to Job, as I mentioned before.
Right.
He kind of prodded him. So were you there when we, got all this started? Were you there when I made this into this into this into this into this?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you want the reins for a little while? I mean, I'm paraphrasing and maybe dramatizing a bit here, but you get to thinking, yeah, right. I mean, good point.
Right.
I mean, if I'm lucky, I'm going to live to my mid-80s, maybe 90.
Right.
That's a speck in the grand scheme of it. How could I, this simple brain, understand all that? I don't.
Can't.
And I struggle with that.
Can't.
You struggle with that. You've struggled
Absolutely.
with that. We all have.
We have to.
And it's not a great answer in that it gives you a true answer, but it does make you think, yeah.
Well, you're humbled.
Wow, I don't get to understand it all. I want to know. We naturally want to know.
Right.
But we don't get to here.
Right. And this is not manipulative, but it's like, you know what? We are brothers in our lack of understanding.
Right.
I mean, that's a completely fair thing to share with that person, or for me and you to share.
Right.
Right? Oh, duh. I don't know.
That's one thing I can ask. Please help me.
Right. Give me a little bit of enlightenment.
Right.
Just brighten up one corner of the room so I could see something.
Doesn't promise to give us everything we want, Mike.
No.
But he does promise to give us everything we need if we believe.
About 1920, I think we've talked about this once before. I don't remember if it was on the show or not. They were aware of one galaxy.
Right.
And it had a couple of thousand viewable stars, or maybe more. And then somebody made a better telescope and looked and said, oh, there's a couple of
more
galaxies.
out there. Yeah.
More. Now, the last time I read, they said that so it went from 1 to 2 or 3 to hundreds to thousands to billion to 400 billion to 2 trillion galaxies, which on average have between 100 billion and 400 billion stars each.
That can't even comprehend it.
No, this was all spoken into existence, God said, pooh, I spoke it into being. So you tell that to somebody and you say, you know what, if I try to wrap my mind, if I accept it, that's one thing, that there's a source of everything from which it sprang, and it's completely beyond my mind.
Right.
I can deal with that. If I try to understand it, no, my brain melts.
Right.
That's humbling. So if God exists, again, how would you pray? How should I pray? Can I pray for you?
Right.
If we suspend disbelief for a moment and you have a sick friend, assuming that there's some intelligent source in the universe, we don't have to name it. We don't have to go, because we always go from the general to the specific in anything that we learn, right? That's a car. Inside, there's a latch to open the hood.
Right.
Now, you see all that big mechanical mess, right? Okay, well, there's something under the hood. That's from the general. The general is car. Now we say, oh, this is a machine that makes movement, power, right? That's more specific, but it's hardly specific. So we go to the next steps. Inside, there's pistons and cylinders, there's valves, and there's spark, and there's timing, and there's combustion, and it's controlled from the general to the specific. So the same thing, you start off simple. How would you pray for me? How would I pray for you? Well, can I pray for you? Not to force you into the club, but would you just like that kindness spoken to whoever and whatever the Creator is? However you see it, Do you see it like a Christian, like a Jew, like a Hindu? You're saying maybe there's somebody there and I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I would like that kindness to be addressed, because God is kind, right? Okay. Why is there order? That's a question. You look around, you go, hey, every year I've never once seen a maple tree make a pine cone. Sounds ridiculous, right? Oh, of course. How come, of course? Oh. That's a good question. Yeah. I don't know. Me neither. But there's order.
Right.
Right? It's written into the program.
Right.
If you wait 100 years, will that maple tree make a single pine cone?
No.
Right. How come? It's order. How? It's different genetic code. What is that? Well, it's the script from which everything gets copied and remade. Well, can you explain it? No. Oh, okay. So, where is God during evil? He created this creation with free will. We have a choice to reach out for God and accept God, or to turn our backs, Well, when you see somebody doing evil, assuming we suspend disbelief for 10 seconds and say, assuming God is real and He gave us free will, if the person enjoys doing evil, are they open to our theoretical God? No. Oh, okay. So we're on a similar footing, even though you're truly not sure, right? The theory of order, when you look at the grand and the small, right? I was just looking at this today or yesterday. There's a they always have these pictures of the Milky Way, this giant spiral, right? That's not what it looks like. It's actually a wobbling spiral, and all the different parts are in 3 dimensions. They're going up and down. It's like, imagine a ride, like not a Ferris wheel,
like
but
a
roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it's not only going in circles, but it's going up and down. And all this is happening while it's spinning in orbit around the universe, the whole galaxy, about somewhere over 100 billion stars, right? And then the order goes from the very big to the very small. So how did all that stuff happen? How did it happen? Where's all that stuff? They say, what if you added up every planet and every moon and every meteor and every asteroid and all the stuff just floating in our solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, Neptune, Pluto, it all would be less than 1% of the mass of the sun. Big, right? And yet it's all working like a clock.
Right.
Just like a clock, timed. And so there's other questions. You say, these are just questions. I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to beat you into submission in a wrestling match. It's not what these are the same questions I've asked, right? What is love? What is joy? What is innocence? What's creativity? What's friendship? Where do these things come from? I've seen films of dogs going out in a field and rescuing a baby deer that was lost. Compassion. Transspecial compassion. How come? Where did it come from? Where's the seed of compassion?
Right.
Right? I saw a thing this morning, I think it's in the Netherlands. This guy has this school for dogs.
Okay.
They're abandoned, they're out in the street, they're gonna die, right? He has this technology where it gets them into like a computerized imitation of a little cart, and they learn to drive. Dogs.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had not heard or seen that.
Me neither. I love that. I didn't know that. I love that. I love being the dummy, you know? Saying, hey, you want to see something else? Yes. So, all these things, they point to order, specificity, but more about love, compassion. A pet dies and its friend goes into a depression that might last for years.
Yeah.
A horse in a barn is going crazy. They give it a pet bird, like a chicken, literally. And the horse's depression ends, right? So how do you talk to an atheist? Like a human being.
That's pretty simple, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, that's it.
And you know, you could expand, you could have plugged a lot of things. You could have put how to talk to a blank.
Yeah.
And every one of those might have a different set of questions, like you were asking, but they all cycle back to that last core thought, and that is, like a human. Pretty simple.
Right, absolutely, right. And if I go to church and you don't, or vice versa, neither one of us is winning.
Correct.
It's not winning. That's not human.
Right.
Now I'm I'm a higher species.
Right.
Because, you know, or I belong to a better club than you do, whatever. This is all not, that's why the person doesn't believe, because they've been shamed into isolation. You know, so that's that.
I like it. That was a good ending. And
Thank you.
pretty applicable to a lot of things in life, Mike.
Yeah.
We're allowed to disagree. Have a conversation.
And it can be
Have a little fellowship.
Yeah,
Learn from one another.
yeah.
Don't know it all. Hopefully you picked up something from the show. Glad to be back in the saddle with you, Mike, for another run of shows. We'll do a
Thank
few
you.
of them.
Always
and
glad.
Post them every couple weeks. Always be looking, be liking, be sharing. Please do so if you find something of value to you, or
Simon
somebody you know.
he pays me large sums of money when I pretend to spontaneously compliment him. So I got to give my compliment so I can get paid today. I bring up the general idea, and then he fills it in with a lot of insight and substance, and so it's really two of us working on these ideas together, which is the same thing. It's a conversation.
That's right.
We give
That's
it gets life between us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Wishing you a fantastic day.